I would like us to discuss about how certain policies and regulations and procedures and laws that come about in the global north countries, the wealthy white nations, how the decisions that are being made in those countries sort of permeate into the global south countries, where they do not have a say on these regulations, but they just get passed on either openly or through the back door. Our conversation today will touch upon various aspects that affect the women's sex-based rights, and we will go deeper into those aspects and how particularly the indifference or the apathy of global north is affecting women and girls of the global south. So I would like to start off with the latest news. We know yesterday that the Keira Bell's case was overturned. And while we have a Supreme Court decision to be made about it at some point in the future, but it is still extremely worrying that the court somehow thinks that it is now okay for children under 16 to have access to puberty blockers. And in one of the news articles that came out, said something along the lines of, we hope that this would be a decision that not just helps the UK, but the rest of the world. And that was particularly striking for me, because I'm thinking, no, I don't want your laws to have anything to do with my country because it is bad as it is. What are your thoughts about, first, the fact that it got overruled, and about how this decision is going to affect the rest of the world?
I think that the Keira Bell, the judgment that was handed down on Friday, I think that is still revolutionary. It is still amazing. I mean, I think that it is remarkable to have found a woman who went through all of the things that Keira Bell went and found the strength within herself to bring a legal case. You know, imagine how many children are going through these treatments and that are experimental, that are not safe. They're just not safe. You know, imagine how many children are going through this, and to have found one who decided, you know what, not only what happened to me is wrong, but I want to stop that from happening to other children, and to take that case on with all the stress, with all the anxiety that that produces. I think that that is remarkable. I think that is still, you never want to lose in court, right? But the fact that she took this case on and won, then it got appealed. She could win in the Supreme Court. The fact that she has been taking this on step by step, it just brings more light to something that has been hidden. And over our conversation right now, we're going to be discussing these policies that are taking place without the knowledge of the population. So what these legal cases do is that they bring light to an area of law and policy and now medicine that has remained in obscurity. So I think that it is obviously, I mean, personally, from a personal perspective, I don't want Keira Bell to lose, you know, and I support her. I support her legal team. They're doing something amazing for so many children. But even if she loses, you know what? You brought the conversation further. And now there's so many people who had no idea that this was happening, no idea at all that this was happening. And now they know because of that case. So I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I don't want to sound sort of like trivial about it. But it's like, even if you lose, you win, you know, because what the success of gender identity policies, not only in the UK, but in the global south as well, the success is imposing these policies, is imposing this legislation without people knowing. So anything that creates noise and attention and awareness, that's a victory for us. What the court decided was that it should be left to clinicians to make those decisions about puberty blockers, about this experimental treatment on children, not to the courts, right? So there's a whole argument to be made there. I think that a big problem that we have is that the clinicians themselves are captured. You know, as obviously the Tavistock demonstrates, the clinicians themselves, the people who train the clinicians are captured. The academia where these debates are supposed to be happening, where these conversations are supposed to be taking place, that is captured too. You know, so you have this whole conglomerate of institutional capture that is preventing clinicians from saying to a child, you know what about we explore this depression that you have, this eating disorder that you have. So I think that it would be a wrong approach to assume that just because they lost on the Court of Appeal, that is a blanket approval of like how great privilege blockers are. However, like when it comes to the global South, I think that there's a frenzy, you know, and you probably noticed that as well in India, but I've noticed it looking at countries in Latin America and the Caribbean as well, that there's this sort of frenzy and an excitement to sort of promote these experimental treatments and to promote the disassociation of children with their own bodies, right? So what I see is this language that is imposed from the global North and is now being reproduced in the global South. And sort of if you see people in the global North using different pronouns or putting pronouns in their bio, then some people in the global South want to do it too. And there's this sort of frenzy to sort of create an agitation about how exciting it is, like getting the gender trait. If England doesn't have proper protocols to safeguard the safety of children, children's right to their own health, to the free development of their personality, if they don't have strong institutional safeguarding against those type of things, then what hope does a country like, I don't know, an ex-country in the global South has? It's not to say that England is inherently better than our countries, but it is to say that they are supposed to have stronger institutional structures, right? So there's an element of exploitation in which countries that have stronger institutional structures, like England, like the United States, like Spain, they then go to countries like your country and my country and tell them, we want you to impose these policies, which are wreaking havoc in our countries, but we want to impose them in your country too. Anytime I see, for example, people in the Caribbean or in Latin America getting on this bandwagon and sort of celebrating or mocking. I saw someone mocking Keira Bell recently, and he got some traction. And I just looked at it and thought like, well, you're doing that for clout. You know, you're doing that because it's what gets you into the in-group, you know, what the mainstream and the establishment are promoting as the acceptable views is that you support the medicalization of children. So I'm going to jump on that bandwagon. And in the meantime, I'm going to like slag or vilify a young woman who is starting from her experience. This happened to me. I regretted that it happened. I don't want other people to regret the same thing that I regret now. Something very personal, very humane, but it's like you're willing to vilify that woman who's doing something extremely brave because that gets you likes on Twitter. That's definitely not something that I would want for myself, but it does make you question what people are willing to do just to appear to be with the in crowd. Yeah, it is. That is what gets you to be popular. If you change your pronouns, if you say that gender identity is like the most revolutionary theory to walk on the face of the earth, like that's popular. Why is it popular? Because it's what capitalism wants you to promote. It helps capitalism. It helps making money, making a profit from the health of children. It helps destroy women's rights. It enables policies in which a man beats the shit out of a woman for sport to win a prize and then say, look at what I just got. I beat up that woman and I won. Like if you're willing to like sell your principles, your conscience, your ideas and promote those type of things, then it's like, I look down on you, you know, it's like, I feel sorry for you for thinking that that is acceptable. But that's the currency. That's the currency to be accepted or to make a name for yourself. You know, like we just have to like call it as it is. You know, there's a lot of professional cloud chasing that is going on this issue, especially when it comes from countries like in the global South. Like you see, I don't know what your language is like, but it's like in the Dominican Republic, we speak Spanish. It's a gender language. It has masculine and feminine ways of constructing words. So when you see people talking with this niche, academic, nonsensical alternative that is like, oh no, we're non-binary stuff. Like you see that and you're just like, it's almost as if someone in the United States drafted a script, gave it to you, and then you went on TV and you repeated that. It's shameful.
Websites, media organizations that have previously, talked about, say, breast ironing or female genital mutilation in other parts of the world are on the same website. It even shows up in the article in the middle that is talking now about breast binders. Everything you need to know, a compulsory guide to chest binding or something like that. And if you click on it, and if you open basically any American or any Global North website and read it, you can see such a colossal similarity between the language and everything. In India, we speak so many languages to a point that we do not have distinct words for gender and sex. And yet, when all these people, predominantly English speaking people, are online, what they have done is, this is fascinating. What they have done is they have queerified everything. Everything is queer right now. And if you notice, this is like a direct rip-off of whatever is happening in the global north.
It's not even a rip-off, it's just a copy and paste, which is something that I find so sort of insulting on a very, I don't know, I don't want to use the word patriotic in a sort of nationalist way, but it makes me, it's like we are taught in school. The Dominican Republic was invaded in the recent history. We were invaded by the United States twice, right? In the last 100 years. So you're taught in history about like, oh, they came and they tried to impose their ideas and they tried to impose their economic policies and all of these things. And that was bad. And we stood up for ourselves and that makes us pride. But then you see these policies and it's the exact same thing, but it's done through like soft power. It is done through alternative means, as opposed to, we're not gonna do it with boots on the ground and with a military presence, but it's the exact same thing. It's a copy of the policies that they want to impose in the global south, and then to see local people just sort of like grabbing that as a draft and going, oh yes, of course, we're going to pass this legislation. That makes me feel so ashamed of like, I don't know, there's a sense of, be stronger, be more independent, have your own mind, have your own judgment. Like, don't rely on what the global north tells you to do and impose that on your country. And I think, like, going back to the point that you were making about reading an article that is about chest binding and then being redirected to something about breast ironing, like look at Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is the biggest reproductive rights lobby in the United States. And they're making this big fuss about this Texas restrictive abortion ban. And some people are arguing that this is all very strategic. It's about sort of like galvanizing the left around the women's issues so that they can win the midterms. Like, there's all these conversations about it. But you're supposed to be an organization that centers women's health mostly, and it's about, like, you could get like cancer screenings there, you can get a pap smear over there, there's so much about their services that is about health, but then you're giving people puberty blockers, so then your whole purpose, gets like taken away from you, because how are you going to earn the trust of the public by saying, we are the place that you go to when you need affordable cancer screenings, while at the same time you're giving children a medical treatment that is probably going to cause them cancer. So when those young women end up developing cancer, do they go to the same Planned Parenthood that gave them that medicine to get their screenings? It's sort of like, there's an element of this whole debate that is sort of about mocking feminism and mocking women. It feels like patriarchy has created this device to these policies and ideas, theories. It has created a way in which they can make feminism into a laughingstock. Because if you're any random person, we have to be open and aware of like how we're operating. Like the vast majority of people are not feminist campaigners, right? And they probably, if you ask them, they're not going to say I'm a feminist. That's fine, that's their right. But you know, it's like any random person that walks down the street, if you tell them, yes, we have a feminist organization that was founded to protect women's health, and they do cancer screenings, but at the same time, they also provide medicine that gives people cancer, people are going to think, well, those feminists are insane. And they're going to laugh at us and they're going to mock us, you know? So it's like, there's all these layers of how pervasive and wrong this whole thing is. But under all of that is the fact that feminism has been turned on its head to support the opposite of what we're supposed to be supporting.